We want to make it a success, and I won't accuse you of being ignorant if you want to ask anything. So maybe a little more inclusive than Ronnie is. He's still mad about Jack, I guess. So, but I can say that in again my piece of the business there, it's the infrastructure piece. We have since 2002 more than quadrupled, and that's from about 600 million to about 2.5 billion this year. That's not as fast as the growth in private equity we heard about these last few years, but it's still a pretty respectable growth. And that means that we're quite big now. When you get up to the size that big, you need a lot of people to run things, you need a lot of people to execute. And that's pretty much what I'm going to talk about. Along with that growth, we've gone from about 300 employees, again, in my piece of the business, there's a lot of other pieces of GE there, to about 2,300 today, headed up to 3,000. That growth will slow down a bit, but again, that's a huge, huge amount of growth. And I'm going to come back to that. And what we're doing, I'd say, in the theme of bridge to change, I'd say that I'm building 1,000 bridges to change every day, because that's what we have to do in order for our business to be successful. Our business model is really sell the new equipment, support that new equipment, maintain it, and then help generate service revenues over the life of these locomotives and jet engines and power plants, which in many cases are 20 years or more. And that's what we're setting up in China. And again, we've delivered a lot of this stuff just in the last few years, so it's just starting to hit that stride. And so in terms of execution, that's what we do, and that's what the General Electric company does. That's what we're good at, and that's what we're known for in China. We've developed quite a reputation for being able to execute and meeting our commitments. And that goes from everything to hiring and training the people to operate the power plants and the jet engines and the locomotives, to also design parts of them and buying parts that go into them. And even now we're moving into designing entire systems, not just for China, potentially for the world. I want to make the point that along with this execution, that really what's happening in China is they're not buying the old stuff, they're buying new stuff. Okay, they're buying the newest type of gas turbines. They're buying the newest type of jet engines. Okay, the first GE&X engines for the new Boeing 787 aircraft are going to be delivered to Chinese airlines right before the Olympics. China made a point to be one of the first buyers of the Boeing 787, and fortunately most of them are buying our engines. They're going to be the first ones to operate a 6,000 horsepower Evolution diesel locomotive. The ones being made in the U.S. are 4,000 horsepower. Okay, 6,000 isn't necessarily better. It's just what they need for their application. But the point is, it's going to be the first one operating in the world. And you go right down the list. Everything they're doing is really on the cutting edge of these applications. Okay, so that means for us to execute, we really do have to have a lot of trained people in China. We've got to hire them. We have to train them. We have to make sure they understand how GE does business. I think Ronnie has said it well. We have to do things to world standards. We have to be better than our competition, and we don't cut corners. We won't do that. It's not how we do things. In the service area, we're building service plants, gas turbine, jet engine, locomotive service contracts, and that's going to grow our business far into the future. And I talked about the applications, and all I can say is going forward, if we want to maintain our rate of growth, we're going to have to make sure that we stay at that cutting edge, because I guarantee you China has very big issues they have to address. They're not getting smaller. As you said, Wilbur, the scale is just staggering. And if they're on the cutting edge with our applications today, in 5 years they're still going to be there. They may be beyond it, and we have to be part of that. So that's the execution. I think you talked a lot about central and local government relationships. That's absolutely key. That's a big part of my life, and I think you used a few words to describe it. But I'd say it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, and it is very predictable. They do change every 3 years. So I don't know, the Babe Ruth batting average, that's pretty good. If that's what you're doing, we have to stay in touch, because I don't think we're hitting it that good. But these people, it's a centrally planned economy, and the provinces are getting more and more powerful. There's more and more money getting spent out in the provinces, and if we're going to continue to grow, we have to be there. Once you get outside of Beijing and Shanghai, I mean, what's the population of Beijing and Shanghai combined? The area, 40, 50 million out of the 1.3 billion. So, 4 or 5% of the population is covered in the chart that you showed on the high GDP areas. There's a lot of other areas with much lower GDPs which are coming up at a faster rate than the developed areas. And we have to be there. That's what we sell. That's what we do. That's what we build. And to be there, you have to have relationships with the local governments. They don't happen overnight. You can't fly people in from the United States or Europe or anywhere else. You have to have people on the ground. They have to speak Chinese much better than I do. And we have to organize on a sustainable basis. It can't be a fly-in. We have to be there for the long term. I think Mr. Kravis said it well. And when we set up these operations, I think I want to quote him again. He said, you can't just walk away from it. You can't make an investment and expect it's going to go well. It won't go well. And we found that in China, because it is developing and rules do change sometimes, you have to stay on it. You have to stay on it very close. You have to treat it like you care about it, and you will be there for the long term. So that's a big, big part of our efforts, and we're expanding a lot. And the last one is really the people. I want to talk about the people, because again, we've gone from around 300, just in my piece of the business again, 300 to about 2,300 employees, still going up. I got a lot of openings. If again, if anybody's interested or knows anybody, I'm always open to finding talent. Maybe we don't pay as well as private equity. I don't know, but you know, our average tenure, our average GE tenure of a GE China employee in my business group now is a little under 3 years. Okay, so you think about that. That's not like that in the United States. It's not like that in Europe. And these aren't people hired fresh out of college mostly. A lot of them are mid-career professionals. But the point is, they've been with GE for maybe 3 years. And our rate of hiring is so high, and the attrition rate runs a little over 10%, 10 to 12% in Beijing and Shanghai, where we're mostly concentrated. So if you just run those numbers out for a few years, you'll see that we won't get past that 3-4 year average tenure for at least 3 or 4 more years. Okay? It's just the way the numbers work. And that means that, again, back to the training and the execution, we have to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to make sure the people that we hire know how GE does business, know the right way to do business, our way, not necessarily telling, the Chinese how you run a business in China, but there's certain standards that you have to meet, or our standards are the world standards, just the way we do it, and make sure that they follow that. And then we have to get them the training. We have to get them the exposure to the headquarters operations. And then as, again, we get bigger and move into these cutting-edge applications, deliver more and more equipment, build up a bigger services network, we have to build these 1,000 bridges back to the mother organizations. Because, again, I'm not like a retail bank or say, any kind of consumer industry. We have big centralized design centers and R&D centers, which we're now spreading out globally, and a big piece of that's going to be in China, but they have to be interconnected. So we need people who can do that, and we generally have to grow them and show them that they have opportunities in GE going forward. The last piece of the people, and it ties in with the local governments and the execution, is we have to get out of Beijing and Shanghai. I've ran this study over the last year. It's a pretty simple study to do. 90% of my group's employees are in the Beijing, Shanghai area. Almost all of the executives that we have are in the Beijing, Shanghai area. And going forward, a lot of our opportunities are not going to be in the Beijing, Shanghai area. So we have to find ways to go out and hire locally, say in the farther reaches of China. And again, that goes to those 1,000 bridges. How can you sell there, maintain there, have a relationship there without people in these localities? And I think if you're sitting in the U.S. in a headquarters in one of the thriving metropoli that we tend to be located in, like Erie, Pennsylvania, or Cincinnati, Ohio, or Pittsfield, Massachusetts, it's hard to kind of picture what you have to do to build up local relationships in Xinjiang or Chengdu, and make sure that the people who are based there for GE have access to the technical know-how, the maintenance manuals, and all the daily things they need to make GE look good in the market. But that's what we have to kind of build going forward, and that's going to be, I think, a very big integrating force for the U.S. and China and our European operations over time. Thanks. That's all I have.